Hey guys, thank you for coming on today. This is John Klein with Brandwidth. We're here with Rick Medlin. He is the CEO and founder of GarageSkins, and we're going to listen to him about his story, business tips, and how GarageSkins is going. How you doing today, Rick?
Good, John. Thanks for having me on.
Good, yeah. We'll go ahead and start off from the beginning. Go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Well, just grew up in a very small town in southern Colorado. Dad was a preacher, so we moved around quite a bit, but ended up going to Colorado State University for engineering. Got out and went to work for Martin Marietta for a brief stint until we had the unfortunate involvement of having the Challenger space shuttle disaster. So everybody got kicked out of the industry at that point. I was fumbling around for something to do, so ended up in restaurant management for a couple of years. But that really wasn't a lifestyle I wanted, working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. So ended up falling into the credit union business and ended up being in financial sales for about the next 30 years, actually. It was a great living. Everything was great, but I still had that engineering mentality behind me. You see a problem, you fix it. And so in 2005, had a small house built just south of Eugene, Oregon. Um, nice little house, but just kind of a subdivision tract house type thing. But in the subdivision right next to us, they had built, these multi-million-dollar homes with these absolutely beautiful real wood garage doors. And so as I saw those going up, thought, I want that on my house. And of course, having no idea what they were, what they cost or anything, we started going out and doing some pricing. And we're talking, $8,000 to $10,000. Plus we would have had to reframe the garage door to handle the weight. It was a big deal. So the builder kind of balked at it and said, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do it after we finish the house. So we went ahead and did what, 90% of America does and just put a nice steel garage door on. But in the back of my mind, we had watched this house come together. It had faux brick on it, with the cultured stone. We had done stamped and stained concrete to simulate slate tile. The house or the roof had architectural shingles, so it looked like slate. A lot of these faux products that looked really expensive, but in reality were fairly affordable and easy to install. And I thought, well, we'll just put the garage door up and then we'll do something like that after the case. So I went out and started looking around for something and found out there was absolutely nothing on the market that could dress up an existing garage door to make it look like real wood. The closest thing we found was this vinyl wrap stuff out of Germany that really looked exactly like that. It looked like a heat shrink vinyl wrap that went on your garage door. So wasn't going to do that because that wasn't the look that I wanted. So I started playing around as any good engineer would. Went to Home Depot and just bought some plywood and glued it on the garage door and made it look really pretty. And then I hit the button and nothing happened because, of course, now it weighs 200 pounds more than it's supposed to. So I started learning about garage door openers, the spring balances, all that stuff. Really just played around with the idea for a while. And, testing this to kind of landed on the idea we should probably use wood veneer instead of wood. But was never thinking about doing anything other than just improving the look of my own house. Well, fast forward into about 2010, 2011, Shark Tank comes on the air. Start watching that, as most of America did. And it was really interesting to watch these companies that had really good ideas come out there for funding. Put their hands out, shake hand deals. And I thought, I've got a really good idea. We really need to pursue this. Start getting this, not only funded, but all of the other things that come along with getting a good business off the ground. So that's kind of where everything started. I'll pause there. That was really the entire backstory. In the meantime, in 2013, I met a beautiful lady and married her, and she has really been the backbone of the company ever since. Just really supported me the entire way, and good Christian woman, supported my faith in God, and just couldn't get any better of a journey.
That's awesome. Amen. So after that, you guys, after Shark Tank, you got funding. You started going out, maybe did like a Kickstarter kind of a thing, got some funding, and then you started with in your garage, just making the garage skins. I guess we'll call them the skins, right? To
Yeah,
throw them on there.
yeah.
Yeah. So you started 2013. You started making the skins.
Well, we didn't go on Shark Tank. They get like 20,000 applications a month.
Right. Right. But you saw Shark Tank, and you're like,
Saw it
oh,
and just
let's
started
start
thinking,
getting
okay,
some funding.
yeah, I was smart enough, hopefully, to contact the Small Business Development Center in Eugene, which, if anybody's not been through that process, they have phenomenal resources available for anybody that's trying to get started. They've got people that have been in tech, consumer products, basically food products, food service, anything that you want. They've got expertise for that. So big plug to them because they really got us started. They put us with a patent guy that took a look at things and said the first thing you got to do is get your patent filed because this is a really good idea. We had gotten it to a point to where we had something that was kind of a working prototype, and just exactly what you said. I destroyed our poor garage. I think I went through 3 microwaves, blowing up glue. Just doing the backyard entrepreneur thing. But yeah, started building these panels, got them to a point to where we actually felt like we had something that was, with more money, we could commercialize it. So we got the patent filed, and that was a huge process. If nobody's been through that, please don't do it yourself. Get a good attorney because that is some waters that you don't want to navigate on your own, especially with new processes and new laws that are in effect now. So got the patent filed, started thinking, okay, now we really need to spend some money on this. Of course, we didn't have the money to do it. So God provided, and I mean, this is just out of the air. We put a website up, said this is a concept we're looking at, patent pending, of course, so that we were protected. And then this guy from Houston, Texas just calls up one day and says, hey, we've got some extra capital. We think it's a good idea. We want to put some money in. So came in on a $40,000 convertible note, which to us was all the money in the world at that point. And so then we incorporated to be able to take in outside investment. Started getting involved with bigger entrepreneurial groups. The Oregon Angel Network out of Portland is again fantastic. We ended up still having relationships with attorneys, with accountants, all kinds of stuff for introductions that were made there. But fast forward, that $40,000 goes a lot faster than you think it's going to. But it got us to a point to where we were able to get some material in, start really looking at different ways to build this thing in a much better way. 2017, all of a sudden the regulation crowdfunding rules had been released by the SEC. And so it was legal to go out and raise small amounts of money from the crowd. So we launched a campaign. I think we were the 20th or 30th campaign in America to go out there, but we ended up raising $225,000. The ugly secret of that, if anybody's looking at regulation crowdfunding, is it takes a lot of money to support that. So you've got to go out and really advertise, and it ended up costing us about $100,000 to advertise that. So net, we end up with about $126,000, but still that's a lot of money, especially when you're just purely in R&D phase. Started spending more money, ended up getting a 600 square foot shop, started to pull in some equipment, a little bit more professional saws, some vacuum tables, things that we really needed to use to do this. Not commercially yet, but to get real good, solid working prototypes out. Ended up hooking up with a company called New Chip out of Austin, which was an online accelerator. Went through 2 years of an accelerated program with them where they taught us, what a capitalization table is. If you're going into this stuff, you have no idea what a cap table is, you don't know what a convertible note is, any of these things, you're just blind. So they gave us a really good education on that. And again, if you're just starting, get with a group that can give you education on all this kind of stuff, because you're going to be miles ahead. If an investor walks up and shakes your hand and not makes you an offer, you got to be able to speak the language that he's speaking. So so all of that comes around to the fact that we were able to present to a group called CTAN, Central Texas Angel Network out of Austin. Fantastic group of people. Really, they welcomed us with open arms. Of course, COVID hit right then. We're talking, spring of 2020, and everything comes to a grinding halt. But one of the people with CTAN had become really, just engaged with us and really loved the concept of the product. So fast forward down the road, we had moved up to North Idaho because that's where we always wanted to site the company. If anybody's never been to North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Spokane area, it's heaven on earth. Please don't move here, but you can come up and visit anytime you want. It's one of the fastest growing areas in the nation right now because it's so beautiful. So many services are available here. Anyway, this gentleman came in behind us and led a $1.2 million round for us on our Series Seed. We were able to put all that together, lease a 60,000 square foot factory, build that out the way we wanted it, start pulling in equipment, doing all this thing, and just 5 years later, we are just going as crazy as we possibly can. We've been on HGTV, We've got partnerships all over the place. We've got influencers that are pushing us as hard as they possibly can. We're probably going to hit 2 million in revenue this year, with targets 5 to 6 million next year, and probably 12 million the year after that. So, I
Wow.
mean, God has been great. He has put some people in our path that never should have been there, and yeah, all the glory to Him.
Man, that's awesome. Amen. God is good for sure. And I bet your investors are happy too to see those. I mean, that's a double year over year at least. And
Absolutely.
that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, we were able to bring in venture capital last year, which has been fantastic. And you know, everybody is very cautious with venture capital because all of a sudden you have somebody that actually really, it's not an angel investor. These people want to see results and they want to see them right now. So we were very fortunate to have a VC that was deep in the home improvement business. And so they knew what it took to actually get a factory built instead of just ordering things from China. We had made that decision early on that because nothing like this has really ever been done out there, or at least that we could find, we didn't want to just go offshore, you know, hand all of the R&D that we have done already to an offshore company just to be able to save a couple bucks. We thought, you know, this is really an American product. We're going to make it from the ground up, raw materials up in America. And so our factory is here right now. In fact, we're looking to expand into a 100,000 square foot factory next year just because we're kind of busted out at the seams of where we're at right now.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I kind of want to go down the rabbit trail here. I want to start off with sourcing materials because, as you said, compared to other people, usually people go out to China and they talk to them, say, hey, can you guys make this product for me? I have this idea, right? And then you're basically, as you said, you're funding the competition to be able to make it for any other company that comes in and says, hey,
Correct.
can you make me the same product, right? So what is your strategy? How did you go into it? What mistakes did you make at the very beginning? Let's talk about sourcing materials.
How long you got?
I got as long
Look,
as you'll give me.
you make all the mistakes in the world, of course, but we had some pretty smart people around us to help steer us through that. You know, we thought about going offshore with this, and somebody very wise said, you know what, if Nike can't enforce their patents in China, how are you going to be able to do it? So that was really good advice. It's like, let's just do it here. We don't think that it is a big enough market. It's plenty big enough for one company to really thrive and grow. But to be a knockoff target for somebody that's going to have to put the capital in on the front end to make this happen, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're prepared if it does. But for the raw material side of things, so we have a few, again, purely believe that God put this in front of us, but we have a certain type of wood that we use that's stabilized to a point to where if you put it on a garage door, you know, we had 3 design criteria for this. It had to look exactly like a real wood door, which means when you touch it, you're feeling real wood. It's not plastic that's just made to look like wood. It has to be lightweight enough that a consumer can install it themselves and not have it, and it has to be lightweight enough that the garage door can still go up and down once it's on. So that's 3 very knife edge design criteria that we had to do. So the first and biggest hurdle that we faced was how to put wood on the exterior surface of a garage where it's going to get UV radiation, snow, sleet, ice, hail, wind, basketballs, sprinklers, you know, everything that's going to hit this thing, and still have it be a beautiful product that's stabilized. And so we were able to go to some chemists that were really smart people, and so we now have a stabilized wood that doesn't shrink or swell, which is really the killer with exterior wood. You put a picnic
Mm-hmm.
table out there that's made of wood, you can start seeing it crack and start moving around after about 6 months. So our product's been out in the market now for 7 years in Houston, which is, you know, a pretty intense climate area. It's been through, I think, 2 floods, 3 hurricanes. Somebody hit it with a car, and it held up actually. So we've got a lot of environmental testing behind us. Same thing in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got them on Connex boxes that are facing south just to see what's going to happen with that. But the wood was a very complicated supply chain. So we actually brought it in overseas, had it chemically stabilized here. We actually create our own veneer out of the board. So we have it sliced out in Pennsylvania, dressed for us so that it's the right size, and then we bring it in here. Very expensive, very long process, but it got us to the point to where we have a very rock solid product that we can put on the outside of a garage door. And there's other commercializations that we can do with that too, and other exterior applications that we're actually getting ready to file some patents on right now. So, but you know, it's got a foam core, and so the underlay that we use is a fairly stiff foam core. We've gone through several iterations of that. The first one worked okay, but we could do better. So we actually end up having a local supplier here that can make the foam exactly to our specs, which is fantastic. Another gift from God. We don't have to go 5 states away to get this. If we need it, we've got it in 3 days, which is pretty fantastic. Packing materials are all made here. The only thing we really have to go offshore for are the neodymium magnets. And that's only because, you know, China owns all the IP, they own all the processing plants. There's some talk that there's something going to open up in Oklahoma next year, but we get great pricing and we've got a really good supplier over there, and they helped us out through the whole tariff, you know, shutdown type thing, that we were still able to get a good supply chain. So, you know, everything's sourced in America except for our magnets, and so we can legitimately say that we're a made in USA product, and all of our labor is local. We don't outsource IT, we don't outsource anything offshore. Everything is done locally here in this market.
Man, that's awesome. And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit about the manufacturing. I don't want you to give any trade secrets away, you know, for product specificness, but just for a kind of macro view to help other entrepreneurs that maybe have an idea, want to say put it together. I know you're, you know, engineer background, so you're a little smarter than maybe the typical person when it comes to actually having something in their head and wanting to have it be physical. Tell me about that process, and how would you direct somebody if somebody asked you how they could do it themselves?
Well, I think if you're a founder and you have a good idea, first of all, let's talk about that, because just having an idea doesn't do it. You really have to go out and make sure that nobody else has had that idea or commercialized it, or there's something fairly close. I think we talked about this a little bit prior, but you know, don't just go be the next Facebook. Don't just go be the next, you know, LinkedIn. You'll never make money. Nobody's ever going to fund you anymore. They used to 5 years ago, but now nobody touches that stuff because you can't be big enough to fight those guys. Go find an idea, whether it's a consumer product, whether it's a tech idea, anything out there, even AI right now. Find something that nobody else has done, or here's the best way to do it: find a pain point in your own life, something that you run up against that you really, it just doesn't exist out there and you'd like it to, or you know, you run up against the company, the biggest company in the world, but they really suck at what they do. Their customer service is horrible, anything like that. That's an entry point that you can get. If you don't have the technical expertise, either on the product side or the tech side, go get yourself a co-founder. They're all over the place out there, really smart people that will come in. You don't have to pay them a lot of money, give them some equity, because everybody's got to have a dog in the fight on these things. But the difference between making it offshore, especially if on a consumer product, you know, Chinese steel is dirt cheap. And so if you're doing some sort of a molded plastic thing, like the case of whatever widget you're making is plastic, it's going to be a lot cheaper to make it in China. What's happening now is that even companies like Apple, those type of people, they're doing a lot of their manufacturing of the individual components overseas because they can make these molds and just churn them out as fast as possible. But then they're doing all the assembly here. And they're using different companies to do different pieces so that not one company owns, you know, the entire idea of everything. You got to be pretty careful on that. There's brokers that can help you through that process that will
That's smart.
pay. Yeah, they'll pay for themselves just in the pricing that they'll be able to save you. But that's a really smart way to do it if you can't do it here. If you were to go out and make molds for your own plastic, they're $50,000 a piece. And you might need 10 different pieces to come together. So nobody's got 500 grand to dump into molds that you don't really even know that that's the final product that you're going to need. So that's a caution out there. If you're going to do something here, I would say one thing that really helped us, we went into 60,000 square feet. We approached the landlord and said, look, we're cash tight. We've got the cash to be able to do this, but we would like to have some sort of a rent reduction in lieu of putting you on a convertible note so that you actually have an equity stake in the company. They agreed to that, and it's been phenomenal because anything that's come up where we're short on cash, can't pay the rent for a month or two, you know, as long as they're in the loop, they've got a dog in the fight. And so it's been really, really a good relationship to do that. If you're going to lease a big space, that's a great thing to do. Don't be afraid of giving up a little bit of equity for partners, especially when you're early. I got this pounded into me, and it took 5 years to pound this into me that 50% of a huge number is so much better than 75% of a small number. So don't be afraid to bring people in, make them equity partners, but make sure that they're truly committed and that they're going to give a value add to the company and not just sit on your cap table.
Yeah. Well, that's such a scary, question too, because it is equity is the most expensive thing you can possibly give away in the
Correct.
company. How do you vet? I think the rental that was smart, depending on how like the contract went. Love creative finance, so that was smart. But how do you vet somebody to be like, is this a good option for an equity partner or not?
Well, one of them is, I think, in a lot of venture capital, when you're talking to them, they will say this, that they want to bring value add. They don't want to just bring a checkbook. They want to bring some sort of expertise that can help the company grow, because we can all spend money and we can all blow through, $10 million tomorrow and have nothing at the end of the day. Young founders, myself included, are very skeptical of having anybody else help make decisions. And that was a mistake. That's been a huge mistake. The wider my network has gotten with people that are in the industry, that are smart, that know what they're doing, and the more I listen to them, the better our company has gotten. So if you have somebody as an advisor, let's say you're doing med tech and you have a consumer product that you think is going to be fantastic, there's a lot of steps to that. You've got to go through, 4 rounds of FDA approval. You've got to actually have the product done first before you even start that. You need somebody either on your board, on your cap table, as an advisor, something that has been down that journey, loves what you're doing, loves the product you're doing, and is willing to help you do that. Because if you do put them on your cap table, it's worthless to them unless they help the company grow. So if you have people that know that journey and have been down it before, they're going to know the steps to take. That's how I would vet somebody. Then, of course, if you're raising capital, the bigger the check, the bigger hammer that they have. So don't be afraid to put somebody on your cap table if they're going to write you a $5 million check, but then just be a silent investor.
How many people do you have on your table right now? That was my question.
Well, if you include the equity crowdfunding people, a lot. But then, of course, we're talking $500 to $1,000 investment. We did 3 rounds of that, so I'll just lump those kind of into the same round. When you're young and you have a brand new product, especially a consumer product in a tech-heavy world, you have to take a lot of $25,000 and $50,000 checks, and we did that. So we were fortunate to have a valuation that was high enough that didn't really represent much of a percentage. But we probably have 25 people on our cap table right now.
Okay, that you guys meet like once a month, once a week, and have discussions about how the business is moving forward.
We have a board that represents that, and so we
Okay.
meet about, conversations are about every month, but formal board meetings are only once a quarter. But they're tied into exactly what's happening all the time. So, and they're good advisors. If I run into something, they're a phone call away, and they're very, very helpful to do that because it's their money too, and it makes a big difference as to how we grow that. Learn about warrants. So if you're going to go out into industry and you're going to make some partnerships where people are going to supply things to you, like especially raw materials, you may not have the funding or the financials to be able to justify that, because they're extending credit to you. They're giving you product with maybe the hope of you writing a check for it 30 days later. Don't be afraid to look at warrants as a reward. It's a very standard thing in the industry to have your suppliers have a little bit of warrants. And if you don't know what those are, again, it's part of the education of learning to deal with investors to get that. But warrants are great. You don't want to give a lot of them out, but it's a really nice little kiss on the cheek to a supplier to let them know not only that they've got a dog in the fight, but you really care about them as a supplier.
How do you structure those for yourself?
Warrants we look at as really, what's that company value add to us? Like we brought a media company in very, very early, and they were going to put a lot of capital, a lot of time into media creation, long form, short form commercials, a lot of product placement that they were going to pay for up front just to help the brand kind of grow to a point. And so, instead of just writing them a $50,000 to $100,000 check, we were able to negotiate a warrant of $50,000 that sits on the cap table. We exercise that. They actually exercise that. So warrants are a promise to sell them equity at a certain price, and typically that price is pretty low. in the future. They can let them expire, and it's no skin off of their back. But if they actually want to exercise that equity in the company, they can write you a small check and actually take that. And it's a promise to them. It costs them nothing to have a warrant. If they want to convert that to equity, it costs them something. So it's kind of this nice little promissory note that sits on the sideline. And then if you're successful, they're successful. If you're not, then it didn't cost them anything.
That's very interesting. And that the marketing kind of brings me on to the next question is, where did you first start selling your product? Did you knock on doors? Did you go talk to home builders?
We started selling way before we should have, but that's basically just what you got to do. You got to get it out in the market. People want to buy it. You've got to take it. But the caveat to the buyer was always, this may take a year or two to get to you. The prices was significantly cheaper then than it is now, which you would expect for that incentive. And we had some very, very patient early adopters that gave us their money and just sat there, some of them up to 2 years, to wait for their product to be shipped. But we always told them, we're not going to ship you a product until we know that it's going to last and it's going to look beautiful on your door. And so they bought into that. They'd already paid the credit card off, so it's just basically sitting for them. The way we got them was really a surprise to us. And we had never, my wife and I are fairly older folk. We don't spend a lot of time on the internet or anything, or especially TikTok, Instagram, all of that. But all of a sudden, these influencers started coming at us saying, we want to feature your product, and we'll do it just for a swap. You send us the system, we'll install it on our house, do a nice video on it, and get that out to our 150,000 people that follow us. And so it's like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it. So we tried it on a few, and all of a sudden, I think the very first one we did, she did a TikTok reel, 30 seconds long, and within 18 hours, it had gotten 650,000 views. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And all it cost us was a system to do. So we started really not exploiting, but as people came to us, we really started looking at them, seeing if they were a good partner. Now we actually do an influencer video every week that comes out. It's brand new audiences to us. Again, all it costs us is the swap out of a system. We're able to capture that collateral and use it in other ways, because if they post it, then the agreement is that we actually get to have that video too, to use in other ways. So it's just been a fantastic way. They're all connected with each other. They all follow each other, see things. So as one sees a reel that comes up, he's like, oh, I'd love to do a post on that. So then they contact us, we get them in the loop. What that's led to is bigger and bigger partnerships. So This Old House magazine came to us through an influencer, and they did an article on us a couple of years ago. And then just last year, we got contacted by HGTV that Fixer to Fabulous was interested in having us do a product demonstration on on one of their houses. And so we thought, we're too early for that. The factory's not geared up. We're not ready for that national exposure. But you know what? You take it when it comes. So we said yes, and they filmed that last November and aired it this February, and it was just fabulous. So if anybody wants to see it, season 6, I think episode 12 of Fixer to Fabulous has our product on it. Same thing with Rock the Block. Rock the Block is HGTV's biggest show. And so they were filming outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. They came to us and said, we love this product. We want to put it on all 4 of these homes that we're doing. Again, last fall, we made the systems, shipped them to them, and they aired, I think, this last April. And it looked phenomenal. If you watch that episode, I think it's episode 6 or 7 of this last season, which is the finale. Our product is all over the place because there's so many exterior shots of the house. So because of that, we've got 5 more shows on HGTV that we're contracted with, and other even bigger, can't use the name because we're still in contracts with them, but even bigger networks are coming to us to want to feature the product. And again, we're not paying for any of this. We didn't outreach. They all came to us. So don't be afraid, especially if you've got a little bit of IP behind the product. Don't be afraid to start getting it out there, because people will come out of the woodwork to support you that you didn't even know exist.
Man, that's awesome. It's crazy how it just grew like that. But
Yeah.
I am curious, like the first like say 10 sales, how did you had this product, How did you even get those 10 sales?
We just put a website up. I mean,
Okay,
literally
so they
that
were
was
all
it.
online, your first 10 sales?
Everything online. Everything we do is online.
Wow.
All of our purchases are online. We don't want to handle credit cards. We don't want to do all that stuff. We certainly don't want to support brick and mortar stores throughout the nation. So it's been a challenge with that. This is a brand new product that nobody's ever seen before. So there's a lot of misinformation that is swapped around on Instagram and stuff about how this is just plastic or how it's going to destroy your garage door. A lot of stuff like that. But we can handle that. What we have developed are sample packs that people can buy that actually have parts of the real, they have a little piece of the real product in there so they can see the quality of what's going on in their garage door, and also some actual stain samples so that they can pick up the color, not just based on something they see online, but something that they can put on their house. We are getting ready to launch, and I believe we probably should have this in the next 2 weeks so I can talk about it. Just finalizing the patent, we should have that filed actually today. Let me grab my phone here. A AR tool where you can pick up your phone, stand in your driveway, hold it up against your house, or see your house in a camera, and then not drag and drop, but through AI, the magic of AI, it'll actually find your garage door, snap a GarageSkin system on it, then you can change the color pattern, add windows if you want, and then you can just order directly from there. So that's something really cool. We've been developing it for about 1.5 years now. It doesn't exist in the marketplace, believe it or not. It should. So again, getting the IP buttoned up on that, but that'll be on the website within 2 to 3 weeks. So
How'd you build that? Because we have some clients. I was literally just thinking that, like, we have a client that does, I'll just say nails, right? And I was thinking, like, oh man, I know for a fact somebody's created a system out there where they can, the girls can hold the camera up to their phone and they can
Yep.
swipe left and right to check out the different colors.
Yeah.
Did you guys build that in-house? Do you have a programmer company?
We're very fortunate that the person that owns the original AR patent worldwide in 2009 is actually in this area. So we went out and started shopping for partners to be able to do this. Obviously, we don't have the expertise to do it. And they kind of came out of the woodwork. They love the project. They've done a ton of work for the government, for Samsung, for all these big companies. So they definitely have the chops to be able to do it. And it's been a process, because it's brand new. If you try to identify a garage door that's a rectangular object inside of a rectangular frame on a rectangular house where the color might be exactly the same as the outside of the house. I mean, it's taken over, I think, 16,000 images trained to be able to get that right. But, it's been a long process, but they're a great partner, and again, yeah, they're local, so we were able to do everything on site here.
Man, wow. And man, that's super cool. So then moving on, so how are you guys marketing yourselves right now? Obviously, you guys are on a lot of programs. Are you running ads? Or are you mostly just doing influencer stuff?
A real big combination of all of them. We run some ads. We've really starting to get away from the big, screaming used car salesman ad type thing, and just move into more of a luxury product like a Rolex or a Lexus or something where, we're really selling the value add to the house, not the deal. And because of that, I think that's a longer term plan that's much more sustainable. Plus, it's also a lot more profitable because you're not giving up the farm on every single deal just to be able to close something. But the influencers continue and will continue. Actually, as we grow, the bigger the influencers get. We're posting one, I think, in 3 weeks that has 7 million followers on YouTube. So,
Wow.
so they're starting to get to a point to where they're almost their own network themselves. We're certainly still exploiting that. But what we're also doing is moving. Our production is to a point now where we feel like we can start working with commercial people. So starting to talk to builders. We've got a couple of dealers that we've already got, one in Colorado, one in Dallas, that we're supporting with the product, and they're out there actively selling it, feeding orders into us. So a lot of different ways we can go with this. Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards have all reached out to us wanting us to sell on their website. Anybody that's been down that road knows that it's you have to be very cautious when you go into that because they have certain expectations that you have to meet that might not be meetable, especially for a small startup company. So We're slow playing that, but those conversations are still underway.
Man, that's super awesome. And what's your guys' plan for the next 2 years?
Well, we got to get this new factory opened up. That's going to take us from the potential of doing about 200 units a week to close to 500 to 600 units a week. And at that point, I mean, then you got to worry about the sales side of it to be able to support that. But we all think that that's there, and we've got some good plans for that. But really, just grow into that. You know, we may end up doing some regional manufacturing. We're talking to somebody down in Alabama that's opening up a new 200,000 square foot facility, and they're looking for someone to come in and take some of that. That could happen. Start maybe looking at the international marketplace. There's some, you know, especially maybe Australia, the UK, even India, believe it or not. India is moving to a single family housing market that's supported strongly by the government, that has, you know, the standard 2-car garage and, you know, all of that. So, but if we do it in India, we have to make it in India. So there's a million different ways to go with this. We just have to choose the right one.
Man, that's super exciting. So tell us a little bit about education. How do you educate yourself to become a better entrepreneur? Obviously, surrounding yourself with good mentors and whatnot, but I'll let you talk more about that.
Yeah, even if you don't have an idea, you just kind of like the idea of being an entrepreneur at some point in your life, get with a local group. Almost every, you know, reasonable sized town out there of, you know, 20,000 or higher has some sort of an entrepreneurial group. If not, you can join a lot of these cohorts online. They're not much money, maybe a couple $100 to join. The education that you will get out of that and what they put you through will be phenomenal. And so you will be poised, you know, it'll be like getting your first 2 years of college education, you know, basically for a couple $100. But the bigger groups, like if you're in Portland, Seattle, especially like Austin, you know, the hubs, San Francisco, there are groups everywhere that you can plug into. You don't have to be actively starting a company. They will take you by the hand, they will lead you down the path and really teach you what you need to know. And then at some point, while you're doing all of that, you're starting to form all these relationships, not with just, you know, other potential co-founders, but with suppliers, investors. You know, there's a lot of money sitting on the sideline right now, and they're all looking for places to deploy. So that's where they go. They go start listening to these pitch competitions, these entrepreneurial groups, and all of a sudden you've got one guy that's in the corner that nobody said anything to, you know, and he's got $50 million in his pocket that he wants to invest in something. So definitely just start plugging into those. The amount of education, the amount of really smart people that want to help you will be phenomenal.
I love that. I love that. What, any online groups? I know you mentioned like local ones, obviously, and that depends. Not everybody can go to, you know, Dallas, Texas. What
Right.
about any online groups that you know of?
You know, a lot of them have an online component now, just because they want, you know, regional support, and they know that people aren't gonna, they're not Y Combinator, so people are gonna, you know, pick up from Kansas City and move to San Francisco for 2 years. Uh, I don't have a specific one. The one that we went through is no longer in existence, so I can't recommend that. And I really haven't plugged into that network enough to have any reasonable, you know, advice on that.
Okay. Just curious, just curious. And then so education stuff, we talked about, you know, I like reading books, listening to podcasts, you know, learn pretty much everything I know off of YouTube and mentors. What about you?
Same thing. It's all YouTube. You got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to listen to 3 or 4 people. You know, you can't just listen to one guy and take it like the Bible, because you'll listen to 5 of them and they'll all have a different take. You kind of got to digest it a little bit. But, you know, basic things like, you know, investor language, how to structure deals. I will say that if you're going to spend a little bit of money, you want to spend $10 and pick up a book online, just to actually read, like, you know, the old days. A book called Venture Deals is just absolutely phenomenal. It is a journey of a couple of guys that started their company. They went through, you know, various rounds of funding, investor involvement, all of this, and they wrote the journey out and all of the mistakes they made, all of the good things they did. But you'll learn a ton of how to, you know, how to do it the right way just by reading that. And it's a very entertaining read too. It's not very long, maybe 300-400 pages.
Okay. Awesome, awesome.
Venture
Any
Deals.
other books or anything you would suggest people to learn?
The Bible.
The Bible. There you go.
You know, I'll tell you, there is so much about faith, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're going into this thing and you don't have $10 million in your pocket and 5 co-founders that really know what they're doing, that have been down this journey before, you're going to have faith. And having faith that, you know, you're living your life right, and that you're plugged into God, and that you have given the company to God to be able to, you know, make what He wants it to make. If you don't have that faith, you're going to be fighting uphill the whole way. There's on LinkedIn, there's all these entrepreneurial groups, and a lot of them are there to support each other through these struggles, because sometimes you got a $30,000 payroll to meet tomorrow and you have $4,000 in the bank. If you don't have the faith of God that you can make that happen, you know, you might as well close up shop and be done.
I love that, and I love that Jesus is awesome. Love that means so much to you. What else does like the Bible mean to you, and faith, and God in your business?
I think it has given, you know, we have it very, it's it's right out there on our website that we're people of faith and that we run our company of that. But we don't beat people over the head with the Bible. We try to live our lives, all of our interactions with our employees, suppliers, customers, everything the way we feel that Jesus would, which is, you know, honest, straightforward. You know, if it's bad news, give them the bad news. You know, but put your arm around them and love them the entire way. And so that has really, I think, positioned this company to grow and thrive with a really good, solid core of people that are inside of it.
That's awesome. How many employees do you have right now when you just
We're
thought of
about
that?
60. We're 60 right now. Probably by the end of the
Wow.
year, close to 100.
Wow, and that's mostly manufacturing?
Yeah, yeah. We've got about 10 to 12 people in customer service and corporate, and then everybody else is on the floor manufacturing.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to hear from you. I'm sure you got lots of quotes. What is your favorite quote right now? Or maybe a couple.
Uh, it's of course out of the Bible, and I can't quote the scripture and verse, but it says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me."
Philippians 4:13.
Yep, you don't need much more than that.
That's awesome. And what is your least favorite quote that you hear around, and what is the alternative?
I want to choke people, which is not very Christian-like when I hear this, but you know, the fail fast, fail often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this mantra that they're feeding people that are coming out of school. You know, just go fail, just go try something and fail. Go fail. You know, fail fast, fail big. Your failure, it hurts a lot of people around you. It hurts your employees that have believed in you. It hurts the investors like you wouldn't believe. These people have worked hard and taken a lot of risks to grow their monetary portfolio. They're putting their money and faith in you to basically do everything, and I mean everything that you possibly can to make this company work. If you go into this with the idea that failure is an option, you should not go into it at all. Doesn't mean that you won't fail. Failure happens all the time. 98% of the companies out there fail. It's going to happen, but that should not even be close to your mindset when you go into this. If you don't have something that you don't think you can be successful, don't do it.
Do you think that that quote's good for anybody that kind of has analysis paralysis or doesn't want to move forward? And I'm not talking about anybody that has employees, no investors, just a single person by themselves that have an idea. Do you think that would be good advice for them? Just go do it, and if you fail, you're by yourself. You know, is there a scenario where that would be good advice?
I would say that if you're by yourself, you're going to fail. So
Oh, there you go. That's beautiful. I love that.
yeah, it's nobody is successful by themselves anymore, especially on any kind of a national scale where you have significant returns on the time, money, and effort that you're putting into things. You've got to have a team around you, and they've got to be really good, and they've got to believe every second of every day that you believe that this can be successful. So the analysis by paralysis, if that's how you're built, you're probably not going to be a good entrepreneur. You know, entrepreneurs are probably a little closer to Elon Musk than they are to, you know, Paul Volcker or whoever, you know, one of the finance guys.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of doers, you know?
Yeah, they're doers. You know, you're going to make mistakes, and sometimes you're going to fail. You're going to cost, you know, investors money, yourself money, your mom and dad money. You're going to cost it, but you should learn from it, and you should, you know, take that to heart. The next check that you get should not be spent the same way.
Mm. What is the biggest mistake that you guys have made in the company that you guys learn from?
Biggest mistake is, I would say, not broadcasting the idea earlier. I went into this thing thinking that until we have a patent, until we know exactly what we're doing, keep it close, don't tell anybody about it. Somebody's going to steal it, somebody's going to go knock it off. If they wanted to knock you off, they would have already. So, and they've got plenty of stuff that they're doing. So anybody that's got the strength financially or anything to knock you off, but you're not going to have that happen until your market is so big and you've proven it. That's when you're going to start having competition. So go out there and talk about it. Get in these entrepreneurial groups. Talk to people that have been down that journey. Find people, like if you're med tech, go into the medical field. Start finding people and talking to them. You're going to learn so much. You're going to pivot 18 times just by those conversations, because you're going to find that what you can do or what you want to do is not possible. There may be some government regulation against it or something like that. But you can go do this instead, and those people will help you along the way. So, biggest mistake, and probably costs us 3 to 4 years of development, is not getting people involved early.
Man, that's great advice. What's the best thing that you guys have done as a company? Probably the biggest headliner.
I think we developed a product that is differentiated than anything else on the marketplace. The concept has been tried before. To take a wood panel and put it on the outside of an existing garage door. It was a massive failure because of some engineering things that they didn't do. But in reality, we found a hole in the home improvement marketplace that is pretty wide and deep that nobody else is addressing. And so I think that was the best thing, is that we found something that nobody else is doing, and we pushed as hard as we can to make it happen.
I'm curious on your answer for this. Being that you went to school and you're surrounded by a lot of smart people, what is your opinion on college and that kind of educational source?
That's interesting. Now I think it's where you go into and what you go into it with. If you go to college because your parents say you should go to college, and you look at it as, well, I'll kind of figure things out along the way, unless somebody's funding that and is willing to just walk away from that funding, you're going to get a good life education that way, but are you going to really get something that's translatable into the workplace? Probably not anymore, unless it's like so specific, like engineering or accounting, where you come out with a skill set that is immediately plugged into. But, the softer sciences, the social sciences and stuff, it really, I think those 4 or 5 years that you spend there are an education on how to learn and live, because once you get into the workplace, you're going to find that most everything that you learn in college is no longer applicable. A lot of the professors have been lifetime professors. They've never been out in industry. They don't have that, everything changes every day kind of mentality. Still teaching the same way they did 10, 15 years ago. So, and I know that's a gross overcategorization. We had professors at Colorado State that were just phenomenal and that were actually active in industry at the same time, so they knew all of this stuff. But it just depends on what you go into it with. If you're, trade schools are becoming more and more of a thing. There's more push to get people into the trades. Fabulous. You can make $150,000 a year as a plumber. Nurses right now, they can write their own check. Our daughter-in-law's a nurse. She can work as much as she wants. She can work whenever she wants, wherever she wants, and she can make a couple $100,000 a year doing it. So, that versus going through, getting a 4-year degree, going out, being a wage slave at $40,000, $50,000 a year for a while. There's a lot of different ways to skin that cat anymore. And yeah, that's my take on college.
Yeah. Well, say you have your parent, right, and you've saved up $50,000 for your son or your daughter to go to college, and that's kind of what you're planning. But now, hearing some different things and thinking about, what does my kid actually want to do? What is your advice on, hey, I have this money for my kid that I saved for college? What kind of educational source should I put that towards? Maybe like a
Right.
mentorship, some kind of group, or maybe just, giving it to them as an investment for a startup of their own?
I think a a miss that parents have these days, and our generation, which is, I'm in my 60s now, so that's, we've cycled out of that. But what I see with younger people in their 30s, 40s that are raising kids that are starting to get to that college age is that we don't give those kids nearly enough credit as how smart they are. Their level of life experience, because of their exposure to everything online, internet, all of that, their knowledge level of the way the world works is so much deeper and wider than ours was at that point, that we kind of try to shove them into the same pigeonhole that we were. It's like, hey, we don't know what we're doing and everything. Those kids know what they're doing. They know what intrigues them. They know what they like. They've got a really good handle on what makes themselves tick and how that's going to, manifest itself in the world. So I would say listen to your kid. If your kid wants to go be a mechanic, support them go and be a mechanic. Don't tell them they have to go be a doctor, because they'll get 3/4 of the way through school and they'll go be a mechanic anyway. It's their formation has already happened by the time they're 18 years old. It's not still forming and still moving itself. So listen to your kid, find out where their passion is at, and then support that, and find out a way that they can monetize that so that they can support themselves.
I love that. Anything else you want to add? Any kind of other information you want to tell?
No, that was a lot. I've done a few of these podcasts. This one was a lot of information. So thank you for the time to be able to do it. But just, go, if you got an idea, man, there is so much money out there and there's so many people to help you now. Just go plug in. Just plug in as hard as you can. And you may not even be plugging into the right group, but they will steer you to the right group. So, get active, get off your couch, and get out there and get to work.
Yeah, no, I love that. And thank you. I try to make this podcast very informative, very straightforward. I feel like a good casual conversation. It seems like when you talk to a lot of, a business guy to a business guy, you guys kind of cut off a lot of the, especially when you're talking business, there's not a lot of small talk. It's like straight to the good gold,
Yeah.
So Rick, I really appreciate all your advice. How can we hear about you? How can we get in contact with you?
Well, if you're interested in the product and see what we're doing, just go to www.garageskins.com. Tons and tons of information. It's a deep and wide site. Like I said, it's a brand new product, so there's a lot of education videos and stuff. You can go to our YouTube channel. It's just GarageSkins. Everything we do is that way. I'm at rickm@garageskins.com if you want to reach out directly. Happy to have any conversations and just kind of help wherever we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been John Klein with Brandwidth. If you guys found value in this content, please subscribe. Share with a friend that would learn from this. Leave any comments. We'll try to do our best to answer any comments. And please reach out to Rick. Get yourself a garage skin. Those things are beautiful. And have a good one. Have a blessed one. God bless, guys.